Ah, yes. Just look at that ethnic oppression there. Xi Jinping just watching a ethnic minority celebration and ritual. Such cleansing. Hey comrades, this is Bay Area 415, taking it easy tonight to watch some CGTN videos on China's poverty alleviation efforts. Yes, this is taking it easy for me. CGTN, or China Global Television Network, is an international English language news channel based in Beijing, owned by the Chinese Central Television, a state-controlled broadcaster. According to Wikipedia, this is the mouthpiece for the Chinese government. Let's see what Wikipedia says about the BBC. Oh. How endearing. Aunt Beeb. If you'd like to see more of this content, please subscribe, comment, tell me what you'd like to see, and I'll be happy to engage with you. I really appreciate all the feedback and support you comrades give me for this, so thank you. Before we begin, I want to review these kinds of videos because I am just fascinated how China is alleviating poverty. I believe homelessness in a country where it is clearly capable of alleviating such suffering is a crime against humanity. I grew up around homelessness not only in the San Francisco Bay Area, but also in my own personal upbringing. There were times where I had to stay with family in other houses or even in our car for a few days because we had rent issues. Although I thought it was a fun experience because I was just a young child, I look back at the struggle and shame my parents went through, and I absolutely detest poverty now, especially because we are capable of resolving it. With that said, let's see how China is handling poverty on their end. I'm going to have a comparative approach with this. I'm going to be comparing the US and Western governments and how they handle poverty with what I see here. All right, first video, Xi Jinping, China to achieve anti-poverty goals. This is back in 2019, April 22nd, apparently, that was published. Okay, right off the bat, we see a beautiful scenery with some epic music, and the first reaction most Westerners are probably going to see is that this is just plain propaganda. They're trying to beautify it, they're trying to make it so special and everything. And beyond the cultural differences in expressing a country's accomplishments, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that this is pure propaganda. I'm feeling generous tonight. Let's just give it to them. Maybe this is propaganda, but what media isn't? We have Fox News peddling their conservative perspectives with the obvious agenda that serves the capitalist establishment. MSNBS that serve the liberal elites, CNN and BBC that attempts to portray itself as centrist, but in reality continues to serve the liberal establishment or Western establishments. All media has their biases, and to see if there's a neutral tone with any of this is pretty naive now. All media has a bias or an agenda that is trying to portray to its viewers. But now that we know that all media is biased and is trying to portray something to its viewers, what is the message that they're trying to portray here? One of my favorite speeches is from Hugo Chavez. He speaks about criticism and self-critique. He has a crucial point about critique coming from the opposition, who have a loaded agenda to twist the facts in their favor in order for the socialist government to lose legitimacy and for them to gain power, versus their own self-criticism, which attempts to better their own government, but in a good faith effort to help the people. I believe this approach can be applied to biases as well. What is the propaganda bias we are watching here? That China is a force of good in the world, that they can accomplish these sorts of things? How do they show that they are a force of good? Do they show a bunch of their military soldiers invading a country, then playing with kids and giving them aid or anything like that? Do they show that they're shooting the bad guys or whatever? Or are they actually attempting to demonstrate that they're taking care of their people through these poverty alleviation efforts and trying to show them on these news channels? All we see here in the West are documentaries on how poor people are. Living in cars, welfare, or even worse, they're just living on the streets. China is actually promoting their accomplishments as propaganda. I think this is a very important point to differentiate between propaganda that is used to show how strong a country is versus what they're doing to trying to help people. So I, for one, think that says a lot about what this country is trying to do and what it thinks a good force in the world is: alleviating poverty. So 88 million people are lifted out of poverty since 2012. In the US, we have over 500,000 homeless, and that is actually growing. Okay, again, seeing this image, let me just say I find it hard to believe that Trump or any other US president would be acting like this. Going to a poor region or running up to children like this and taking care of the kids like that, I just find it hard to believe. Maybe it's just me, but I am so used to my presidents not visiting the poor like this or not seeing others like this that I find it very surprising that somebody like Xi Jinping is taking the time to actually look after people like this. It's really interesting how he talks about taking care of the children too. Look at these school lunches. These are apparently poor regions of China. They get fresh food and their own cuisine cooked by professionals instead of processed BS. I know that they probably got ready for this or whatever. They're cleaning up and the president's coming, so, they prepare for all this. But I always remember when US Congress literally said pizza was a vegetable. So, again, something to think about. Education is compulsory in alleviating poverty. Makes sense. From what I heard about China's system, political analysts like Eric Lee state that there's no way somebody like Trump would ever end up as president in the CPC. Just looking at Xi's entire political career, he was dedicated in cleaning up corruption and enhancing prosperity for everyone, making poverty alleviation in rural areas a priority. The CPC has one of the most rigorous tests for its members. Also, I heard Xi Jinping took that test like 10 times. He failed 9 times and actually entered on his 10th try. And now he's the president of China. So, President Xi visits an impoverished family who has an assigned doctor, and every low-income family has an assigned doctor who makes visits to them every month. You have to remember that this is considered poor in China. They have an assigned doctor that visits them, and I don't know, we have clinics here, but I don't think doctors, I've never seen a doctor here visit somebody or has done anything of this sort. So China makes it a priority to meet all the basics for everyone. Guaranteed food, clothing, education, housing, and healthcare. As an American, how can we look at this country of 1.4 billion people while we, the richest nation in the world of 300 million, blame immigrants and other minorities for taking too much? Too much welfare, they're driving up costs, flooding our schools, taking our resources. But China, they are guaranteeing all these basic things for 1.4 billion people. Damn. This next video is called Xi, No Ethnic Group Should Be Left Behind in Poverty Alleviation. This ought to be very confusing for many Westerners because they have accused the CPC of ethnic cleansing of minorities in China, at least through erasing culture, and through the most extreme accusations, genocide. So the media is a supposed mouthpiece for China, according to Wikipedia. It should make sense that there should be some sort of fascistic propaganda about these minorities, right? How they are Han Chinese and how they are superior among these minorities, or how they deserve such poverty because they are born broken, or, kind of like the Nazis did with the Jewish peoples or others that suffered during the Holocaust, right? The kind of propaganda that we should be seeing from these news networks are about how they are superior against these ethnic minorities. But they are promoting here as propaganda, no ethnic group should be left behind in poverty alleviation. And I know some people may see poverty alleviation as some sort of ethnic cleansing tool. However, looking at these houses and looking how these people are living, they are cooperating with the CPC officials. They are showing all this. They are supporting their government and everything else. They're not fighting against this. I would see some sort of resistance from the community, from their own people, rejecting these sorts of things. But let's say they're covering up their brutality through some nice speeches like these. Statistics and countries around the world, including Muslim countries, show support for Chinese programs like these to help these populations and help these communities. So Xi Jinping is talking about these relocation programs to take impoverished people from these homes like these to more modern homes with appliances, running water, and other modern amenities. Again, comparing this to America, I don't see the government relocating one group of people from poor housing to a better housing unit or anything like that. We just put them in housing, which is decaying and collapsing over time. I forgot this, the Chicago South Side projects. It was on Candyman, something green, but it's a fascinating story about those projects as well. And this guy actually did a fantastic video review about Candyman, and although he said I don't want to share it, I'm sharing it here. Yes, just look at that ethnic oppression there. Xi Jinping just watching a ethnic minority celebration and ritual. Such cleansing. This last video is called Working in China's Poorest Village.
It was a very eye-opening, life-changing.
So, I'm gonna be honest here, I'm immediately skeptical of a Westerner traveling to the poorest regions of the country, and it was such an eye-opening experience for him. I mean, usually Westerners go on these, sort of hero trips in order for them to just feel good rather than actually helping the community. However, I'm gonna watch the rest of this documentary, but I'm gonna try to I don't like this approach already, but let's see how this goes.
I didn't know what a poverty alleviation commissioner would do. And you don't really hear a lot about them, actually. When you read or when you deal with poverty alleviation,
so I think
work
he's
in China, you hear
shadowing
about
a
policies, you hear about measures, you hear about deadlines, but you never hear about...
你好，你好，郑队，你好。
你好，你好，等你很久了，好不好？这边是我们的第一书记 First 欢迎 Secretary。
So I was just formally introduced to the whole crew that is working here in the village, and we're just gonna go.
So apparently they have an entire team of 5 people, along with this gigantic headquarters in a highly remote region of China.
This is home.
All of this to alleviate poverty
around us
in
here
this
the
region.
Headquarters of the Poverty Alleviation
It is just absolutely remote.
Home for the next few days.
Mud, roads. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So in this clip, they're providing some sort of dish to, I'm guessing, have some signal for TV or something to this disabled couple living in poverty. These commissioners are trying to help them set up the dish, and they're giving them powdered milk and other supplies. And they're saying that they will move into a new home once it's complete. Like I said before, these relocation programs help people struck by poverty enter new modern housing with all these modern amenities that they usually cannot obtain because of their economic status and where they're coming from. It seems like China knows that these villages are already poor and don't have the resources to climb out of poverty. They're not just blindly giving them money and saying, okay, that's it, here you go, bye-bye. They're actually getting in there and trying to understand it to stop generational poverty from happening in these sorts of places.
I mean, this is not a life. I didn't know how ugly it could be. I didn't know how extreme the situation could be. And now that I've seen the first sample, and this is just the first example of perhaps many, and each household has its own problems and its own situation.
Yeah, apparently these are the new houses being constructed for everybody in this village.
这个房子漂亮吗？
I see.
It's frustrating how this guy says that these houses are so-so compared to the other houses he just saw. And yeah, I agree with the commissioner that these are beautiful houses compared. I mean, these houses will have water, electricity, and will be fully furnished. Fully furnished apartments for poor people. Just, what are we doing, America? They are doing this. Like, why aren't we should be mimicking this for our poor. We can have more people contribute to the economy if they don't have to worry about houses, you know? And China's just giving them houses. Of course, there's an expectation that this is going to generate something for the economy. However, the social aspect of this is just phenomenal.
We're just trying to follow this very detailed form and see if there's anything that changed.
So they're updating this information on the family, and it looks like they give out subsidies for people in the family, including a woman's subsidy. So apparently they are above the line, above the poverty line, and they are still receiving these subsidies from the government. Apparently income is only one aspect of the qualifications for poverty subsidies, and how the family qualifies as a low-income individual. It's extremely interesting to see that not only they count income, but ensuring proper accommodations and making sure their children are going to school. Now, some may see that requirement that children have to go to school as, oh, look, they're trying to erase their culture, they're trying to do this, but this is poverty alleviation. And the village has been living like this for a long time in extremely harsh conditions. And the government is really just trying to help alleviate these conditions for these people. I remember seeing another show saying how people that don't want to leave or don't want to accommodate to these sorts of standards are actually left alone in China. I'll link it in the description, but there are people in China that refuse these services and the Chinese governments let them be.
Every house.
It's very interesting that they know how long this takes. Poverty isn't solved immediately. It takes time and progress to alleviate these sorts of plights.
More specifically.
I like how this is actually reflective of socialism with Chinese characteristics. A society cannot just jump into communism after capitalism. It needs time to build up wealth and resources, but rather than directing that to an individual or a private entity, they put it towards the people so they can eventually live in a more prosperous socialist society. So apparently it's vaccination day for the kids where they get vaccinated. I wonder where all the anti-vaxxers are. Also, they're teaching the entire village how to wash their hands to prevent illness. I think there's a lot of people here in the United States that need to take that lesson too, especially considering the coronavirus, but they'll probably complain that those types of classes just infringe on their freedoms. Apparently, once this is said and done, these poverty alleviation commissioners really do risk their lives. At the end of the documentary, it states that 777 commissioners have died up to 2019. So they have extremely dedicated social workers that are just willing to possibly die in these environments to help these people grow out of these conditions. It's just absolutely touching to see these sorts of things, and as an American, to just see these types of people have such dedication. Not to say that there aren't any people, social workers or anybody like that, that don't have the same passion or dedication, but just not the governmental tools or infrastructure to push for this sort of progress. Thank you all for joining me for this review. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this sort of content. Besides doing some memes, I have 2 major videos coming up that may take some time. The first video will be on Deng Xiaoping and socialism with Chinese characteristics. That will really take some time for me to study for everybody to truly understand what this actually means. In a fun, educational, and interactive way, the same type that I've been doing with these sorts of videos. Second, I have an absolutely huge announcement for the channel, and I want to get everybody's input and attention for. So please be on the lookout. Please ring that bell. Get as many people to subscribe as possible, because it may be a really big announcement that no other Marxist-Leninist or leftist organization has ever done before. Thanks again, comrades, for joining, and solidarity.